founded council in 2009, and that was basically to ensure that there was a lot of diversity of voices in this space, because it's quite a technical space and lots of engineers involved, which is very good. But they're not always the best persons to bridge what they are doing to end users, to citizens. And so we figured we needed a kind of think tank that was also looking out for how this Internet of Things is actually going to be really built in public spaces, in homes, in health, in mobility. And so for the past 6 years I've been blogging about it, writing about it, involved in projects, and partnering with a lot of conferences. Basically, I think there are two visions or two paths that people are exploring. On the one hand, we see that there are a lot of companies with closed proprietary solutions, and they are linking up the gateways to the networks, which is basically a way to describe Internet of Things as linking up the networks between the body, the home, the car, and the city. For example, Google is doing that with the glass and the lens, and the power meter and the Nest, and the car, and all the work they're doing in the city. And then there's another group, and I'm part of that group, that says that thinks that these shifts are so important that of course we need companies there, and of course we need entrepreneurs, and we need commercial solutions, but they cannot lead these developments. So the developments should be led by public institutions. And these gateways should be in public hands. And the infrastructure should be centralized to a large extent, because we don't want 50,000 protocols, we don't want 50,000 different type of RFID readers. We would like to have smart parking work in Singapore and Malaysia, and we would like to have it also working in Beijing, so that you don't need like 50,000 apps in order to sort of. So we need to streamline things, and in order to do that you need some centralization, and for having some centralization you need some public institution and support. And I think that, especially if we listen to the minister has been saying that, I think at the moment Singapore has like the best cards to build the best balance between commercial, non-commercial, and centralization and decentralization. Well, in my view, if we link up these networks, and then I can have, like, as a very simple person with not that much money, actually no money or no heritage or no big sort of very sort of I can have the best feedback on my personal and my mental and my physical health. I can have the best way of sort of finding out what's the best energy allocation in my home with all the equipment and all the appliances that I have there, with very sort of cheap and smart solutions. I can have very good feedback on my mobility, knowing when to take the bus, when to take maybe a taxi, or when to sort of like, and how to move around. And I can also see, which is again very strange, as a very simple individual, huge amount of data sets from governments, from companies that were closed before, that we can use now to actually maybe even look at these big things like climate change, and to understand that why at one particular point in our homes we are all going to have IP-enabled washing machines that will basically tell you when to wash. And even if we don't really like that, because we think it's like a big personal innovation, somebody's going to tell me when to wash, come on, what is this? If we then say, look, if you do this, if you do wash at this particular time, you will actually pay less, because we can actually tune this to the smart grid. But you can also help to save a lot of energy, which might help to save a lot of climate change. And we also know that also, especially in Asia, and with all the typhoons and all the warming, this is costing huge amounts of money. And so this Internet of Things, as I see it, is going to give me the best feedback on my personal health, the best resource allocation in my home, the best mobility trends for me, how to go about, and is also giving me, as a quite simple end user, huge amounts of insight into global events. And now just try to compare this with the situation before the internet. in the 80s, 70s, or even, let's say, in the last century, what could simple persons do in the last century? Nothing, I guess. Well, or if you would be very angry, you would sort of revolt and you would sort of pick up a rock and start throwing it, which is quite sad because you might break a window, somebody else has to pick it up and pick up the glass. So there's no more need for these types of solution, these types of anger. At this moment in time, if you're young and if you want things to change, you go out and change them. I'm not meaning to say this in the same sense of the old-fashioned Nike, just let's do it, as if it's not difficult. It's very difficult and complex, but it's possible. So if you don't do that, then you do have a little bit of your own culpability, I would say, in not doing it. Or you just say, I don't care, and then you just don't care, and that's also good. Okay. Well, I'm very concerned about this for the fight between sort of open and closed. And so I believe that the more open you have it, the more diverse you have it. So the more inclusive, the more people involved, the more inclusive. The more diversity you have. The more diversity, the more conflict. The more conflict, the more potential innovation. So throughout history, we always see that if societies get too closed, if they get too centralized, if they get too strict, if they get too homogeneous, they die. And this is a very logical, human-natured result of us being on this planet with these types of requirements that we need from being human and from being tuned to an environment. So if you have a more inclusive view, if you have more types and different people in your community, you will have more daily types of small conflicts. And this is what you need as a society. If you don't have these daily types of small conflicts, the conflicts will grow into bigger conflicts. And so the conflict itself will then sort of start to get outsourced to other institutions, like, say, the police or like the military or like other people, and you will start depending on these, and new generations will think that that's the normal way to go and normal way to do it, and they will lose this ability to actually have these daily small conflicts and conversations. So this is basically how I see it. I think if you go this closed way, it's not a viable, vital way. So you have to go for this open way. But going for this open way in a world that's not fully open means that you have to find points in which you secure and harness your own value. And that means that you have to develop your own type of pragmatic sort of cybernetics, because we are going to have to be to get used to living together more with automated systems that will have influence on our daily activities. We're already doing it with our Fitbits and sort of wearables and trackers, and these will not go away but become more pervasive and become more institutionalized to a certain extent. This can only happen if we trust that sort of system, if we trust that the advice that we're getting from these systems is actually tuned to us. It cannot be always fully tuned to us, because we as people, we're not very good at having midterm and long-term visions, right? Sort of, I still eat too much sort of chips and peanuts, and sort of like, and then like even 5 o'clock before having dinner, I see, and then sort of it's very difficult for me not to do it, and sort of I do it, and I know in the midterm and long term it's harming me, but I still do it, right? Should I have this ice cream? Should I have these like 5 scoops and lots of cream? Yes, let's do it, right? Well, you can do it once, but if you start doing it 5 times, and you can think about, am I doing it, should I not do it? So we're not that good at these types of decisions. I started it because I realized there was no public debate around IoT, and it was basically all these technical magazines, and it needed to go to the street. It needed to go to the public. And so basically this whole idea about IoT Day is that you can do any type of event. You can start talking to your friend, your colleague, whatever, just about, and just get some conversation going, because this is so important. This is driving our societies, driving our domains, but it's not on television, it's not in the newspapers, and nobody seems to know what's going on about it. This is causing people huge amounts of fear about security and privacy, and this is, I'm not saying it's unnecessary, but I'm saying it's debatable. I'm saying we can actually co-create new notions of privacy together. But for that, we have to start talking about it and discussing sort of what we want. So this is why I set it up, and I'm very happy that 3 years ago we started to cooperate with Trevor Harwood from Postscapes. So IoT Day is now from Postscapes and Council, and and we found a sponsor for this year and for last year, Zatar, and so it's like Council, Postscapes, and Zatar, Zebra Technologies behind it. And I must say, it's been already, because I'm just looking at my tweets and it's exploding. It's literally exploding. So we have Digital Agenda from Europe kicking in. We have Cisco agreeing to things and saying +1. We have the Internet Consortium that's also here kicking in. We have like the big players like the Dells of this world and the IBMs and the Ciscos, and we also have the other ecology, the small ecology, like with the Arduinos and the Raspberry Pis and all the lone makers and the meetups. And this, I think, is really telling what's going on. So IoT means that the middle is getting bigger, and that the top and the bottom, and also maybe even the rich and the poor, sort of is getting smaller. It also means that as this happens, the pushback will also be getting stronger, because we are really beginning. This IoT is really beginning to hurt certain sort of companies in a particular way. They want to really hold on to very closed systems, and that have really built their empires on a lot of overhead and a lot of non-intrinsic arguments in the system. And I'm not saying they were bad, because they did it because this was a system that sort of led them to sort of do this. But I'm just thinking, and they are also thinking, maybe we should change a little bit, because if we don't change, we will not make it. So there's a new middle that's growing, and this middle is informing both the top and the bottom. So it's changing the top and it's changing the bottom. And I think I can understand sometimes when you would be young now, that you're a bit worried and you don't really understand how your skills, which are the skills of the net, which you grew up into, and what is being built in this real world, which seems to be built with different principles. It isn't built with different principles. That this is sort of not feeling well. But I'm beginning to think that if I was young, I'd be very also, I would say, I'd be quite excited about all this potential, because it's really a lot of things there to explore, and there's a lot of new structures that are needing to be built, and they need young people, savvy people in the network to build them. So I don't say it because I'm on IoT Asia, sort of, but I've been invited to IoT Asia now for the second time, and I've been talking to the organizers, and I think they are very skilled and very expert. They're doing a fantastic job, and the situation, I would say, it's very real things are being debated. People feel that these issues are real. It's not just a paper thing. This is not just something that you go to just for fun. You feel that a lot of entrepreneurs feel really affected. They want to know what's going on. They want to know where are the challenges, and they want to know the solutions. I think we see that there's a big trend towards more co-creation and more end users and citizens being involved, and this is where IoT Asia, I really believe, sets the tone. Well, I'm seeing full rooms. I'm seeing hearing very positive, getting positive feedback. So I want to congratulate the organizers on a very good conference.